The SP 500 and the Nasdaq 100 is what we're talking about today here on the channel. Now, a few things before we dive straight into some of the news that will be coming out relatively soon this week. Before we go any further, even into the charts, I do want to say the most impactful day, in my opinion, for this week will be Thursday. I do not think it will be the Fed meeting. I 100% believe Thursday is the most important day. As to why, I'm going to tell you right here. Going into Wednesday, Fed meeting, I anticipate a 0.25 hike. I've been saying this since November. If we come out at 0.5, I think it's going to set a pretty negative tone. But I'm going to tell you, I think Thursday, no matter what, sets the overall tone. Now, on Wednesday, with that Fed meeting, we have Meta. That'll be interesting. It'll be important. Tomorrow, we have AMD and Snapchat. Those will be interesting. Those will be important. But the biggest one will definitely be here on Thursday. Amazon, Apple, Google, QCOM. I mean, these are just powerhouses right now. I'm going to tell you, that will set the tone for the next let's just say week and a half, okay? Let's just hypothetically say that. That will set the tone. Now, as we dive back into the charts, I'll explain more about that here in a second, but I just want to highlight, people keep asking me, Tyler, what do you think is going to happen with the Fed meeting? What do you think is going to happen with this? I'm like, look, the Fed meeting, half of that stuff is probably priced in. I'm going to tell you right now. The whole market's pricing in 0.25. The only thing we can't really price in is Powell's tone. That's the only thing we can't anticipate. So we kind of have to keep our head on a swivel, be a little careful. And of course, before we go any further, I have to ask you to do two things: like and subscribe. Now, I don't recommend you do this if you didn't get anything out of the video. If you got nothing out of this and you think it was pointless, I actually recommend probably just click the thumbs down or unsubscribe or whatever it may be. But if you get something out of this, I recommend liking and subscribing every single day, Monday through Friday, and on Sundays typically. I give you a breakdown on the market, what to expect, news, everything in between, and what I'm watching for in particular. Now, for the past few weeks, we've been looking for overall downside. We had that quick pivot, and then we started targeting key levels as far as 4,100 on ES and Nasdaq up to 12.2. Both targets have hit, and now we're in the area of limbo. So this is more important than ever to where we're going to be going. Let's get back into the video. So when we look at what's happening here, let's just discuss, and we're going to go to full screen here in a sec, and let's just look. Obviously, you're clearly in a trend, right? We can't argue, whatever you want to say. Now, some people, again, I want to answer some questions. I've seen some comments, and I read your comments. Believe me, I read them all. Frustrations hit my heart every time, but I still battle through and I read them for you. If you're looking at what's happening in the market, some people are calling us a bear flag. This is not a bear flag. The flag will never extend and be the same size as the pole. That would be ridiculous. But nonetheless, decent question. The most important part here on the Nasdaq and the ES, I'm going to tell you right now. And this again goes into why I believe Thursday is the most important day. If we look at the rallies we've had, let's take a look at a few from this past year. We had March's rally, which was arguably the most volatile. That was led by the Nasdaq and tech. We had the June rally that went through almost August, led by tech. And we had a really nice push and really nice continuation, I might say. That was probably the best continuation that we had as far as time spent to the upside. I would have to say basically June all the way through. It was beautiful. I mean, what a time to be alive. We were just hammering calls, just making money, you know what I mean? And then we had this period here from basically October into December. And it was not led by the Nasdaq. If we look at the Nasdaq, it had the smallest amount of movement, the most recoil, if you will. And I want to start patenting that word here on the channel. That's trademarking it to option drops, because we got a lot of recoil here. Up, down, up, down, up, down. There's no real smooth upside movement here, right? And then this move that we've had from the beginning of January, or actually a week into January till now, so basically 3 weeks, has been heavily led by tech and the Nasdaq. So this is interesting. And when we look at this, what do we say here continually? If we're going to move to the upside, what do we expect? And what do you want to see? You want it to be led by tech. So what am I getting at here? When we look at what's happening with tech, this is the first time. Okay, I'm going to just show you here real quick. Okay, we're going to get rid of this real quick. We're going to go to the daily, get rid of that one, go there. This is the first time that you've been above and mounting above like this on the 200 SMA all the way back to basically February, arguably March on the daily time frame for the Nasdaq. Now, following through this, you can go to ES, which is SPY futures, and you can see here, this is the first day. I mean, this is the first time we've really we've mounted it at this point. You broke, came back down, mounted here and pushed up. And this is the first time that we've mounted it since, yes, last year in March. If we zoom in here, you can get a really good look on the daily time frame and to see this action. You break through, reject back down, and then look at that mount and then push up. So this is interesting what's happening here. We're going to talk about some of these levels and where we're at. But that's how we're moving right now. It's pretty good. I want to break down the long term before I go down to the short term. Now, I want to say too, you are not breaking the bear trend yet. Okay, you broke the downtrend, but you haven't reversed yet. To reverse, in my opinion, based on supply and demand, based on price action, you'd have to make a higher high. So for Nasdaq or for SPY and ES, I would want to see you get to basically 4,200. That's what I would love to see here. And going into Nasdaq, I would love to see you get, man, really just 12.8 would be enough for me. But beyond that, this is what we want to see: higher highs, higher highs. I mean, even possibly 12.3, 12.4, mounting that level would be huge here. So just giving you the possibilities and what's happening here now. So right now we need to talk about, obviously the biggest impacts of this week are going to come down to these earnings. And giving you a visual, I want to just highlight what happened between Amazon and Apple's earnings last time. They were both on the same date. So I want you to bear with me. I'm going to go to SPY because it's just going to give me the best. Actually, we're going to go to SPY. So we're going to go to SPY. We're going to go to the daily. No, we're going to go to the 2-hour time frame. And we're going to go back to September 27th. I believe that was the day. I'm about 90% sure. Yeah. So this was the day right here. Amazon, go fact check me if you want. That was the day we had Amazon and Apple earnings right here. And what we noticed is we had a lot of downside on the market. We pushed up into September 27th and then dropped throughout because it was in the after hours. And then the next day we shot up. Now, as we look at this, I want to highlight, and I just want to say, when we look at this action, let's go to ES in particular, or you can even look at the Nasdaq. Those are both great examples. Now, when we look at, let's actually go to NQ. We're going to go back over here, actually, and just go look at NQ on the 27th. That was our level. And as we highlight and we just go back really quick, again, I recommend when you're looking at charts, you need to be conscious of these levels and kind of how you moved at previous times. And if we look here, this is where things got really interesting. Into the close of the day here on September 27th, you can see, boom, a lot of downside. And then coming into basically earnings, you get a nasty drop from Amazon because Amazon reported first, and you get a disgusting, just almost 150 point drop. And then Apple reports, which we all know those notorious, terrible, terrible earnings that shot us up, and then Apple got clobbered, right? We're right here. And that's how we moved. This is the impact of earnings right here. This is the best visual. And it may not look like much because we're on the 4-hour, but this is essentially a 500 point move on Nasdaq. Okay. So for instance, if we come all the way back to where we're at, just showing you in relative to where we're at and how we're moving now, this would be essentially the same thing as how we pushed from the 25th all the way up essentially on Friday, right? Almost to highs on Friday, giving you a visual. So this was a 2-day move. It would just be a 1-day move that happened on the Apple earnings. So giving you food for thought what happened there. Am I saying that that's going to be the move that you're going to get from earnings? That's not what I'm saying. But I'm being cautious. And again, we were pretty heavily bullish, right? There was a lot of hate coming on the channel. People were like, man, look, Tyler, you're too bullish. You're going to get slaughtered. Bears, bears, bears. And what happened is volume continued to just thrive you up. And when this happens, you definitely get into the trend. And that's why I'm highlighting this trend so much, is that we're clearly just in an upward channel. Like, this isn't a wedge. It's nothing like that. You're just trending to the upside. And so when we look here, this is what I have to be concerned for is, what if we reject at these key levels? Because we hit our targets to the point, 12.3 on Nasdaq. Going into ES, we hit that level to the T right there, 4,100, a little bit overshot, but that's where we're at. And now we're bouncing at support around 40.29. So you're in this little range, and I just say right now, just be careful. I think over leveraging, swinging through these days is extremely risky, because again, if the Fed comes on surprises at a 0.5, you're going to get hit immediately. But then beyond that, if the Fed kind of surprises and then Amazon and Apple beat by some miracle of a chance, then you're going to get killed if you switch into puts. So it's like right now, like I always say, there's no reason to try to time the bottom. There's no real incentivization to do that, right? There's no reason, because you're always going to have those opportunities. Just like when we pushed up, when we came back down, what did I say on NQ, right? Very, very clear, right? If you break back above local highs at 11.7, you just flip to being bullish, right? So we broke above. We said, look, we're out of all of our puts. We're stopping. We're going, and we're looking at it from a bull thesis from now on. So you pushed up. You came back down. We're like, look, we're buying in. We like this. And then you shot back up. Again, I'm not making this up. Go watch the channel. That's what we're looking at. And it's not to be cocky or say, look, we're right, you're wrong. You know, we make all this money. I try not to even highlight the money made on the channel. But it's to educate and to show kind of what happens based on price action. And that's the important base of price action, supply and demand and volume, because it tells you where we're going and why we're doing it and who's in control. That's the whole premise here. Now, giving you again a visual of what's happening today. Today, again, people are like, well, look, you're terrible. You're pushing down. It's awful. Again, lowest volume that we've had. Even on people saying that the volume, the upside has been low. Well, the volume today was even lower. I want to highlight that movement. Okay, people get mad when I say highlight. But what you want to see is when you actually get a reverse, hypothetically, when you get a reverse on any type of market, what you want to see is whoever in control lead with volume. So for instance, when we go back to looking at what happened here on the 20th, we got an increase of volume. When we go back to what happened here, we got another increase of volume. So you need to understand what's happening there. And right now we didn't really see the volume today. And I really do believe, based on how we were moving, I assume we would drop quicker. And maybe it comes back down to looking at the Nasdaq on the daily time frame here and the fact that you're trying to mount and hold that 200 SMA. Only thing I can think about that's really your main support there. But yeah, that's what I'm watching. Overall, you're still holding previous highs. There's no reason to panic. If anything, this is just a pullback at this moment based on the trend. And again, this isn't me being, biased or looking toward the bull side or me being saying I need my calls to get in the money, because again, I'm just sitting pretty liquid right now. I have a few positions, but they're very small. I've trimmed almost everything as we move towards our targets, right? Because when you have a target and you hit it, ultimately you expect to get rejected from that target because you expect sellers to step in because this is a significant level, right? And that's just simple of what we're looking at here. Now, going forward, biggest expectations, trade ideas, etc. I want to be very careful going forward. Again, like today, you had some good opportunities. I think Amazon was your best opportunity on the day. I mentioned yesterday, and you're gonna have to excuse me for all the cuts in this video. I'm have really bad sinuses today. I'm pretty sick. But if we look at what's happening, we talked about yesterday, if you mounted 102.5, you were bullish. If you stayed below that, you were bearish. We had some good movement on the day, like on something like Amazon, right? You can go like something like the 15-minute. You can see we get the intraday, the beginning of the day, push up, clear flag, reject, instant money maker right there. Great opportunity. NVIDIA chips, we thought the end of the line was coming. You had to be a little bit careful on these chips. You got a little bit of a pullback. No surprise, AMD earnings on Tuesday. And then you had NXPI here on the after hours. No real surprise. NXPI pretty flat. No big surprise on that earnings. But you just had to be careful. There was a reason to take a step back because you were so close to targets. So when I'm looking at stocks right now, because we ran up so much to our targets, I have to be a little bit careful and cautious. So I'm not going to have that many stock picks to go over or stocks that I'm liking. But you're seeing a lot of stuff respect these key levels still, which still tells me that equities aren't dropping rapidly. We had a gap down this morning, don't get me wrong. Some stocks like Microsoft are hurting, but those are inherently weak stocks from previous earnings, so I'm not too worried about them. But like when you look at something like Netflix, again, not too concerned here, right? People are like, oh, Netflix is pulling back. I'm like, in comparison, yeah, it's pulling back. But again, if we look at this from a non-biased standpoint, I mean, you're in a clear uptrend from essentially those lows that you made at 150 down here, 160 down here, right? You still look great. You're mounted all your previous highs, continue up and up and up. It's not that bad of a play. So these are things that you have to just be watching for and take a quick zoom out. There's no reason to stay zoomed on the 5-minute all day. Really be cautious and aware of where the market's going and where you're at. You don't want to just say, oh, well, we're getting some downside. It's time to start hammering puts. A lot of people, we go live here every day on the channel around 10:30 a.m. Central, but a lot of people were talking about, oh, I was getting hammered on my puts because I was just, I bought in early. I'm like, there's no reason to, because again, where we do most of our focus, where 75% of all my trades stem from, is looking at the Nasdaq and the ES, and you're clearly still in the upward channel. There's nothing else to say here. Now you're in the middle of it, so you could have a little bit of downside. However, I'm just being cautious and just watching what's happening here, okay? So Monday, Tuesday, even Wednesday, I don't expect serious movement. End of the day, Wednesday, you're going to pick up in volume and volatility just because the Fed meeting. A lot of people are asking about strangling. If you have never done a strangle or a straddle, stay away from them. That's my opinion. That's not financial advice. Do your own research. But yeah, going into a little bit more detailed things, and people are, again, I'm just anticipating what you're going to ask. We have the VIX. Everyone's asking about the VIX, and I know everyone's like, guys, I've been charting the VIX for 2 weeks now, and I'm aware that we probably have to bounce here. Now, VIX, I don't like the move that you got today. I'm going to tell you that right now. Even with the volatility, basically like a 200-point drop from basically Friday's close, I don't think it warranted a $2 upside move almost. Personal opinion, that's just me. I think you want to see VIX move with better movement from indexes. My opinion again. So you're still making these lower highs here also. And again, I'm not one to chart VIX, but I'm just showing you what's happening here. VIX is more important to watch major key points. That's why I said I anticipate VIX honestly coming down to the 16 level, 16, 17, and that's where I think VIX is going to be the buy for myself. And then as we dig a little bit deeper, you can look at, something like DXY. DXY still holding this major level. I've been kind of screaming this from the rooftop. It's your most important level here on DXY. Essentially, since all the way back at 109, this is the next level that I've been highlighting over and over and over. You've seen China, you've seen all the devaluing come out in the US dollar, Japan, Turkey, I can go on and on this list. And DXY is holding this level pretty significant. So if we see DXY really start to pump, that could have a direct impact on the Nasdaq and ES, but I don't think that comes until the Fed meeting either. So these are all just things that I'm watching, and they're just not pointing me to a sign of hitting the sell button yet, right? It's, again, I'm not hammering buys, I'm not hammering calls, I'm just being patient, waiting for the markets to give us. Last up, we're gonna look at TLT, and TLT gave me another interesting sign on the day. This is a 4-hour chart, so you can see. TLT really just signifies the health of the economy. That's the best way I can describe it for you guys. You still have this like bullish pennant here on TLT. Again, we like to just talk about what's happening every day, but we don't talk about where we're at on the market. And TLT just continues here, right? You're just obviously making higher lows, lower highs. You have a pennant going on here. We can also see that we had that bump and run. We broke that, 2-year-long downtrend, bounced perfectly on it and pushing up now, trying to get above the 200 SMA. So these are just visuals that I'm watching right now. And again, the only thing, and I know you're like, Tyler, you're not giving us a clear answer. And I try to be transparent with you. If I don't have a clear answer and I don't feel confident in something, I never want to push something to you guys, right? Because I am under the notion that I do have an impact, and maybe the way some people trade, right? I try to be as honest as possible. But I think right now, you got to be patient, right? Because there's a lot of things building up that are coming to fruition the end of this week, Wednesday and Thursday. Again, Thursday is my most important day. I have to just say, again, be careful. Do not be too aggressive. I think you gotta just wait it out for a sec, because I promise you, the move you're gonna get after Thursday is gonna be you're gonna get continuation from it, either to the downside or to the upside. I promise, you're gonna get continuation. If you move to the upside, you're gonna mount 12.3. It's gonna be awesome. It'll be great. If you move to the downside, you're gonna probably start trying to find not 52-week lows, but starting to test some of these big levels, probably like 11.2, 11.1 on Nasdaq. So these are all things I'm watching for. And again, I know this probably isn't the greatest video that you watch, and I know you probably want to direct, should I buy, should I sell? But that's not what you're gonna get from me. You're gonna get the honest truth, unbiased, and sometimes people have to unsubscribe. I'll see you tomorrow.